You're listening to the Look Great Naked podcast. I'm your host, Eric Bach. This is the podcast for men and women who want to look great naked without living in the gym. If that sounds like you, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hey, do you want to go from gut to abs? If so, you are in the right place. I'm Eric Bach, your host of the Look Great Naked podcast. I got my good friend here, Jay Jackson, with me. We are down in Houston at a business event, and we want to bring to you just a banging podcast full of everything that you need to know to look great naked without living in the gym. Now, here's the funny part about this, right? Just about 6 years ago is when we first linked up, and I was in Toronto, Canada at another business event hosted by the same person, Vince Domani, hosting this event in Houston, Texas. Now, that trip was an absolute nightmare. My first flight got canceled. My bags got sent to the wrong airport in Toronto. There's two.
Shit.
And I had like a 36-hour turnaround before I was supposed to go to Austin, Texas for a wedding, and then Las Vegas with my wife.
A lot of shit going on.
And coming full circle with this, right? One, we're traveling right now. So we had a little bit of fun yesterday. We'll talk about a few of those things. But now we're at a business event. And so this kind of comes full circle in a way that, one, we're traveling. We know that you often travel, and that can be a huge battle when it comes to building your best body. But our friendship really comes from the world of coaching and of mentorship. That's been a really, really cool experience because, you know, it's like now we're hanging out in Houston. We got Airbnb a couple blocks away from the hotel. Before, we've been hanging out in Atlanta. When I lived in Georgia, you know, we would go out and have some good times.
A lot of stories.
Save some of those for another time. We'll get a couple now.
Right.
But now here we are down in Houston. So, dude, let's just kind of jump right in. And, you know, as a coach, you know, what got you involved in becoming a coach, jumping into the fitness industry?
Good question, man. Well, it really starts back when, you know, I played football. You know, one of my biggest things was I was one of those kids that I always wanted to make my pops proud.
Yeah.
You know, and I moved with my pops when I was around about 12, 13 years old. And I found myself like working out all the time, bro.
Yeah.
You know, I'm working out at like, you know, 12:30, midnight, you know.
Yeah.
And my pops is like sitting in the corner in a chair just watching me do little football drills and hurdle drills and stuff like that. And so, you know, over the next couple of years of just working out day in and day out, you know, with the ambition of going to the NFL, you know, making my pops proud, I just developed a passion for working out along that journey, you know. And when I got to college, went to Georgia State University, walked on and played football. And, you know, about 2 years in, I found myself really just not seeing myself going in the direction of playing in the NFL anymore.
Yeah.
So, you know, I stepped away from football, you know, was crushed. And I basically had to reinvent myself, bro. I think a lot of guys tend to go through that pain of, you know, that's like our first dream with sports.
For sure.
Whether it's football, baseball, whatever it is. And I hit that point in my life where I kind of felt like a failure and felt like I let a lot of people down, felt like I let myself down. And from there, I was like, man, I gotta pick myself up, you know?
For sure.
And I gotta pivot. I can't sit here in this pain and misery. And that's when I turned to fitness. And I just went all in, man.
Yeah, man.
Start helping people.
I love that. And, you know, we share a similar story in regards to, you know, fall in love with the game. And that's really what pushed us to train. And, you know, my dad and my relationship very similar in the regard to, you know, training him, always like being there for the support, you know, and trying to get better at sports. And then, you know, not having that ultimate dream of, you know, playing the NFL really manifest. But you bring up something that's really interesting. And it's that, especially with men, I notice this with women too, but particularly people who've been in really good shape at some point, whether they're an athlete or not. What happens is you go to this point where you've been in such good shape and achieving success in that sport is no longer the primary thing that's driving you. Again, it's almost like the death of that first dream. And after the death of that first dream, what can happen is, one, if we don't change some of the things that we're doing and how we prepare, it's not necessarily going to lead us to where we want to be. But mentally, we have so much of our energy attached to how we look, feel, and perform in that moment. And for many people, what happens is they never find the right way to adjust their training, their nutrition, their mindset, yet they hold on to that piece of the identity. Right? So it's like you get guys who are 35, 40 comparing like, well, you know, back when I was 22, I could do this. I could feel like this. And there's an inadequate feeling because as an athlete and just in general, we have a tendency to compare ourselves to when we were at our peak. But what we don't do is make adjustments to our training and to our mindset to realize that when all the circumstances and everything else in life change and our body gets more mileage and all these different components, that we need to make adjustments in how we do everything. Right. And so then there's this incongruency of like, you feel like you're letting yourself down because you're no longer at your peak.
Right.
But you don't quite know what tools, tactics, strategies to apply at the right time. Right. So like, let's move forward a little bit, because you stepped on stage, you competed.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that and a few lessons that you learned on stage.
Cool. Well, man, I actually kind of got into not personal training, but I got into doing the bodybuilding thing because I had already been personal training, and I knew enough from going to college on how to help guys, slim down, get in shape. But at the time, I had some clients that were kind of like, they say, hey man, I lost the weight, but I still got this little belly fat right here, man. What do I need to do?
That little belly fat, like little mashed potatoes, like
there you go, man. Like the damn tire around their waist. And like, how do I get rid of this damn tire though, Jay? I done lost some weight, but I still don't feel good taking my shirt off yet. And I didn't know exactly what steps to take as a trainer.
Yeah.
At that point, all I thought was like, we just need to do more abs and cardio,
Yeah.
And you and I both know now that's the wrong thing to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I started having quite a few clients running into that issue. I helped them lose weight, and it was like I just couldn't help them finish. I got them started, but I couldn't help them finish to get the result they really wanted. And it kind of started making me, feel bad, like questioning myself. Like, am I really the guy who I say I am? Can I really promise these big goals? And, can I deliver? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at that time, I couldn't. And so I went ahead and hired me a coach, a bodybuilding coach, and stepped on stage. But when I hired the coach, I wanted to learn the steps on how to get shredded.
Yeah.
Because when I thought about it, I said, okay, who are the people who know how to get super ripped and shredded? And that's when I started bodybuilding. I'm like, all right, I just need to hire me a coach, figure out what these guys are doing, and apply it to my coaching with my clients.
Yeah, definitely.
And after 2 bodybuilding competitions, I learned so much. A lot of mistakes that I was making personally, as far as like nutrition and exercise, and a lot of like misconceptions in the fitness industry. Like, people think that you got to give up carbs to get shredded.
Yeah.
And that was something that I thought to a certain extent. And I was just like, as I was prepping for my shows, my coach allowed me to eat carbs every day.
Yeah, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, I'm like,
you feel a lot better, by the way, when you cut.
Yes.
And you actually have carbs, because your body can't recover from that type of training anyway if you're always 0 carb.
Yeah, that's real. And I started thinking to myself, man, I'm eating carbs every day, but my body's getting leaner week to week. And when that aha moment happened, I'm like, man, everything I thought was right was wrong. And that's just one example. And so after I got done doing my second bodybuilding show, I kind of hung it up because of the amount of time that it required to be in the gym.
Yeah.
I was in the gym like 2-3 hours. By the time I walked out the gym, I forgot where my car was at. I'm like, man, where did I even park at? I'm chirping the little, car.
Trying to get the alarm going off.
Right. I'm like, where are you? And that was the reason that made me get into bodybuilding, was because I wanted to help my clients.
Yeah.
And then I also just wanted to push. I wanted to see how far I could take my physique too. I was in shape, but I never had been shredded.
Yeah. There's a difference in like being like athlete lean versus like shredded. It's a different component. And that's where a lot of people who are athletes like struggle.
Yeah.
Right. They stick with the same exact workout programs.
Yep.
And there are same principles that you can take and you can apply.
Yep.
Some explosive training, progressive overload with big compound lifts, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But like getting nutrition and getting synergy between all these components is really like what the higher level physique stuff really requires.
100%.
And, something, a couple things that really stood out to me, with what you're just telling me was, one, you didn't know what to do.
True.
So you didn't just spin your wheels, like reading more articles and shit and just like trying to figure out like, what should I do? Like, I'm going to go hire somebody else who's got a proven track record of doing this thing.
Yep.
And again, it's funny because, we're here actually improving our business and different aspects with coaching right now. And every single person in that room, there are people with $200 million businesses in that room.
Yes.
They've got coaches.
That's true.
Right. So it's just like, And I know, like, I don't even mean to turn this whole aspect into being about coaching, but it's like, sometimes you can accelerate your learning curve just by like letting your ego go back a little bit and being receptive and open to that feedback. And then secondarily, you mentioned it was taking so much time in the gym, 2 or 3 hours for these workouts, right? So What are maybe 2 principles in the gym when it comes to losing body fat that you could distill down that you apply with your clients now? Because I know, similar to me, like a lot of your clients are incredibly busy. You know, they're in and out of the gym in under an hour, a couple days a week.
Yeah.
Like, so what are like 2 primary training things that you emphasize when it comes to losing body fat, losing that gut?
That's a good one, man. So a lot of people, one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of guys make is they think that it's all about the workouts.
Yeah.
They think, man, if I could just get in the gym, Jay, can you just give me this game plan, baby? I just need something to do so I can have some structure.
Yeah.
But they don't realize the nutrition does the heavy lifting for us. And so that's where I always have guys start. You know, dial in your nutrition, get the fundamentals down pat, you know, knowing your calories, knowing your protein. And one of the unique things that I use is called cyclical fasting.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you want to go into detail on that now.
Yeah. Let's jump into cyclical fasting.
Yeah. And so fasting, you know, there's a lot of different methods out there. You got the 5-2 fast, the OMAD fast, like the 1 meal a day fast.
Yep. It's crazy, like 72-hour fast, like water fast. Like, nah.
There's just no way I can do it.
No, I like Chipotle too much.
There you go. You know? Exactly. I'm like, fuck that.
No doubt.
And so what I do is like the traditional 16-8 fast.
Yep.
But I call it like the sliding window, because you can fast for 16 hours, but then some days, like, I don't really care to fast that long. You know, I'll just fast for like 14 hours. And so it's more like flexible, but it just gives you structure. Like, some people look at fasting like a magic bullet. Like, hey, you do this, you're going to lose weight.
Yeah.
But if you overeat on bullshit during that feeding window, you still won't lose the weight.
Yeah, that's very true.
And so the fasting part of it, there's a lot of health benefits behind it, but mainly people who want to drop body fat, it gives a structure, you know, on when to eat and when to stop eating. Because some people, I find they eat throughout the entire day, and it's easy to lose sight on how much they're actually eating, and they never drop weight. And like, man, I'm doing the fasting, but I mean, I'm eating healthy, but I'm still not dropping the weight. And when they start fasting, they become more self-conscious of when they're eating and what they're eating. You know what I mean? And so that's the fasting element of cyclical fasting. And then the cyclical part of it is carb cycling. And so we cycle the amount of carbs that we tend to eat on certain days. And so here's the way I break it down. It's like, I learned this from like a lot of my buddies who grew up playing sports with me. When we stop playing sports, a lot of guys tend to start gaining weight.
Definitely.
And the reason they start gaining weight is because the way that they were eating when they would work out is the same way they're still eating when they're not playing sports anymore. And so you go from eating 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, playing football and running track and stuff, and now you're not playing sports anymore, still eating the same amount.
Just play Madden.
Just playing Madden and going to work and sitting in a chair all day, you know, and they blow up. And so it's like they don't need to eat as much because their activity, their level of activity and exercise is very minimal now, right? And so what we use cyclical fasting as, like the carb cycling element, the days that we work out, we tend to eat more because our activity level is higher. But on the days where we're not working out, we don't need to eat as much because our activity level is low. And so it's like energy management, but in a way where we can still drop body fat while still eating good food at the same time.
Yeah, so to kind of like come full circle with it, the cyclical aspect is on days of your training, calories and carbohydrates are higher to support that activity level. And then as a result, because after you train, your muscles are working like a sponge, we can store those carbohydrates directly into our muscles instead of, you know, lower belly fat, all that fun stuff.
There you go.
And then on the flip side, when we got the fasting component, that helps. I find that it really helps people reduce decision fatigue around food.
Ooh, yeah.
And it helps them, particularly people who are busy. When you have fewer decisions around food, you can stay more disciplined, right? Because your ability to make decisions, we've all been there. You get to the end of the day. Yesterday, we both traveled, you know, across the country. And pretty soon, you've been making decisions all day. You've been in traffic. You've been like checking into, you know, Airbnbs and all this.
That's so true.
Your willpower to make great decisions goes down. And so if we can reduce the number of decisions that people have to make, it's such a simple way to be more compliant, to actually stick with the programs that, you know, we're trying to follow to build that best body. So let's pivot now a little bit, right? A lot of your clients travel.
Yes.
We travel. We traveled yesterday. Yesterday was my birthday, so we went out and had a little bit of fun. But like, let's just talk. When you're traveling, what are a couple nutrition strategies that you personally stick to? Because, dude, you look like you could line up either on a bodybuilding show right now or throw on some pads and walk out for the NFL draft going on.
I should step out right now. Just jump on stage. I don't know, man. We had quite a few drinks last night.
Yeah, and cheeseburgers, by the way.
Yes.
But few and far between.
Right. So a couple of things. Simplicity. Like everything in my life, I focus on condensing it down to where it's simple. Like if it's too many pieces moving around, I'm probably not going to stick with it because it's going to be hard to sustain. Right. And so in terms of, when I'm traveling, instead of eating, 3, 4, 5 meals where I have, 3 big meals and maybe 2 protein shakes or a protein bar or something like that.
Yeah.
I eat less. And so I'll eat maybe 2 to 3 bigger meals.
Yeah.
And then if I do eat 3, it's like a very light meal, maybe like some egg whites and some vegetables. And then my other 2 meals throughout the day, like definitely when I hit the airplane, because I told you after I got off that airplane,
game over.
Pizza, it was over. Instead of eating a big medium pizza or a large pizza, I just had a personal pan, because I think traveling tends to be a bit stressful on us. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Kind of waiting on the airplane. You're hoping that you're going to get to where you need to be at on time. It's just so many different moving pieces. You got to get through to check in and with TSA and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man.
And so it's like, geez, and I think these are like things that we don't necessarily think about, but our body and our mind are kind of going through them. And
body keeps score.
Our body keeps score. Exactly. And so, my thing is reducing the different things that we have to focus on. Like how you were talking about decision fatigue.
Yeah.
If you have to eat 5 meals, you got to focus on eating 5 meals or 6 meals while you're traveling. That's a lot to think about. Where you gonna get all these meals at?
Yeah, and what are you traveling for? Like if you're for business, if you're wrangling kids through the airport, like again, simplify your decision-making process.
Yeah.
When you reduce the number of decisions you have to make, it becomes easier to make the right decisions. And that's one issue with complicated training programs, with complicated diet strategies that simply aren't applicable, right? You can have the best plan in the world that has the most formulaic, scientifically backed and reinforced research.
Yep.
But if you can't apply that shit consistently, all it's going to do is overwhelm you, right? There's this complete, overemphasis on all these things being perfect in the fitness industry because there's so much information.
Yeah.
And people get so overwhelmed because they're like, what can I do? I just saw this thing and it had all these research studies that said this is the best way to eat.
Yep.
And then I found this training philosophy that said I'm going to burn 30% more calories according to my Apple Watch.
Right.
Like the Apple Watch is off like 25%, but that's another story.
Right.
And so when we can reduce decisions specifically around nutrition with things like cyclical fasting, specifically around travel, reduce the number of decisions you need to make by reducing the number of meals that you're consuming, right? Those are very simple, straightforward, practical ways to stay in great shape across the board.
There you go.
Now, so we went out last night, celebrating a little bit, a little bit off track with diet nutrition, but I think one of the most important things with travel is during the week, I can't speak about you right now, but like I was dialed in all week.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like when we want to go out and be able to have a good time, it's that one time and now we're back on track today. And so it's about, this is an old football analogy, right? As a defensive back, you're always on an island. You make one bad play, you got to forget about it. You got to go right back to making the next one.
I like that,
right?
Yeah.
And diet is the same way, where a lot of people will make one decision and then they kind of, for lack of a better term, say fuck it, and then it's off the rails, right?
Yep.
Instead, you just got to think, just make the next best decision that you can. And you make that next best decision, then you're going to go right back on track. And so we had burgers, we had a couple drinks, but even there, we kept the drinks low sugar.
Yeah, super minimal too, man. Yeah.
Didn't eat all of the fries. And now today.
I did.
Yeah, you did. And then
I'm keeping it real.
Hey, gotta keep it real. And then this morning though was like cool. Some coffees. We just grabbed like a quick little breakfast sandwich over at Starbucks, and then we just ordered some Chipotle bowls, like something very simple, very straightforward, very similar to what we would eat if we were back home.
Yeah. And another thing with that is convenience. Like sometimes, like we're at an Airbnb right now, and outside of convenience, convenience is one thing. I'm getting ready to talk about that in a second, but also having an Airbnb, it gives us the freedom to even be able to cook at the crib, while we're traveling, instead of having to, go somewhere and eat meals. And then the part of the convenience is this: before you even travel, I already have an idea on where we're going to eat at, or if we're not going to be going out to eat, well, is the area that I'm going to be traveling in, do they allow like Uber Eats? Because I know certain places they might not even have Uber
or
Eats.
Instacart. Like I have a lot of my clients use Instacart. I'm like, just order the same food that you would at home if you're an Airbnb, and then you can stay on track.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Or stay 80% on track and then go out and enjoy your dinner and have a couple of cocktails. Like, you got to be able to live a little bit too. That's why we say look great naked without living in the gym. That's what it is. So
80-20 rule.
Exactly. So, man, kind of knowing where you're at right now, what piece of advice would you give yourself if you could look back at Jay Jackson at 21 years old, no longer really pushing for the NFL, but trying to look, feel, and perform your best? And I want you to think about this in two ways. First, what would be like a concrete piece of fitness advice? But secondarily, what would be a piece of lifestyle advice, perspective, something that you've gained through your years as a coach and just being a grown-ass man?
That's good. I like that. Great question. The first one would be running your own race. And so I think so many times, definitely with social media nowadays, people, you get on Instagram and you're like, man, I want to look like that guy right there. I want to look like Eric Bach, man. How do I get those abs? How do I get that shoulder vein? Sometimes people, instead of using that as inspiration, they look at it as like, oh man, I don't think I could ever get there. I'll never look like that, and instead of that, use that as fuel, use that as inspiration. And so that way you can motivate you. You're actually pushing towards something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in the same way, that's inspiring you, but you also want to look at how can I become my best self, running my own race, using those other people's results as inspiration, but what's going to be the best that I can be? What's going to have me look the best that I can look? You know what I mean?
Definitely.
That's one of the first things that I would say. As far as like mindset and I guess a little bit of fitness too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's all integrated, right? Like fitness is a force multiplier. Things that we learn, they apply everywhere in life.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would say is just never stop growing, man. Never stop growing. Like I feel like as long as we're living, I look at life as like a game. We're always in the game. And so as long as we're progressing, whether it be learning something about nutrition, learning something about how we can get better rest. I think at this stage in our life, it's like being able to manage stress and manage our energy. You know what I mean? As we're in our 30s now, we're not young bucks no more.
No, it's a little different.
Right. And so I know when I hit like 29, 30, I'm like, I can't stay up super late like I used to anymore and still feel good throughout the rest of the day and get things done. Like I got to manage my energy and stress a lot more nowadays. And so, being aware of these things. And so that way, it doesn't matter if you're not dropping weight. It doesn't matter if you're not like getting stronger all the time. As long as you're getting better and you're growing in some aspect of your life, because we're talking about fitness, you could say something about fitness, whether it's strength or you dropped a little bit of weight, your clothes fitting different. Just look at these different ways of improvement, but you don't have to focus on all of them at the same time, and I believe that's the number one thing,
I feel that.
You always continue to grow, and I find that when I'm growing or building, that's when I'm most happy and most excited, And so I think a lot of people are like that too.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a plight of high performers where they're always pushing to level up in so many different areas. And I found that if we don't take a second and have some gratitude and like a daily gratitude practice, or even, think about measuring progress backward, having just a perspective of where you were before, it can become really easy to be dissatisfied with the progress that you are making because the perspective isn't necessarily in alignment with reality, particularly when you add in all this comparison that happens on things like social media, right?
Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, I got one more question for, actually two more.
Yeah.
Number one, what is the best type of shirt for guys who are in shape?
The best type of shirt? No shirt. That's one. But the other one I would say is the Henley, man.
Henley or bust.
I'm rocking the Henley out here in Houston right now.
Yep.
And man, I've been getting chews and signals. Your boy's looking good right now. And I like the way it kind of like fits our arms. Fits snug.
Yeah.
You got to be hitting them arms, baby. If you ain't hitting the arms, you're missing out. But I feel like it's one of those universal shirts that it'll make any guy look good, especially if you work out.
Definitely. Can't beat a Henley.
Yeah.
Short sleeves, long sleeves.
Yeah, both. Yeah, short sleeves or long sleeve for sure. See, you rocking it too. Yeah. Yo.
Henley squad.
Henley squad, baby.
Henley squad. All right, Jay. Hey, thank you so much for being on.
Yeah.
Where can we find out more about you?
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all at Jay Jackson Official. Jay Jackson Official.
Awesome, gang. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to learn more about Jay, make sure to go check him out. If you love this episode, make sure that you are subscribing on YouTube and dropping us a 5-star review on Apple. We'll catch you next time.
Hey, it's Eric here again. Now, before you go, I have a really cool gift for you. If you want to look great naked, and I'm assuming you do because you're listening to this podcast, then go to bachperformance.com/free training to join over 1,100 successful men and women in getting a step-by-step training to look great naked without living in the gym.
Did you find this helpful? If so, pound that like button and hit subscribe. Now, if you want a free copy of our Chiseled Muscle Cheat Sheet, the no BS way to help you lose body fat and build lean muscle in 90 days, make sure that you go to the description below and download your free copy. Any questions? Drop them in the comments, and can't wait to see you with the next video.